here is where it gets really wild, folks. Upshot says if the Bengals don't win another game this season, then they have no shot to make the playoffs. And I ran the scenarios, and that is technically not true. It's a bit of a trip, though, so you're going to have to stay with me. Welcome to the jungle, everyone. I'm Kyle Phelps, and I might come off as some sort of like crazy mad scientist or conspiracy theorist or whatever in this video, but you know what? That's fine, because 4 weeks ago, I thought that our season was over and when we lost Joe Burrow for the season, and now we have a realistic shot at the playoffs. I'm not gonna lie, I did not have that on my bingo card. Seriously, my expectations were on the floor after that pathetic loss to the Steelers, so I'm enjoying every minute of this process, even if we don't make it. That said, today we're going to talk about how they do make it. What does the playoff picture look like after a critical Week 15 change the landscape a little bit, and how do the different scenarios of the next 3 weeks affect them? Alright, so let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. The Bengals are no longer eligible to win the AFC North this year after Baltimore improved to 11-3 on Sunday night against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was unfortunate because, fuck them ratbirds, but it would have taken a miracle for the Bengals to win the AFC North anyway after they swept us, and then, things happened, so it is what it is. That said, that game might have actually ended up helping our wild card bid, because right now the Jaguars, Colts, and Texans are all now tied at 8-6 for the AFC South lead. And that's very important because the Bengals have a head-to-head victory and therefore a tiebreaker over the Jaguars and the Colts, but not the Texans. And they don't, because the Bengals lost to the Texans while Joe Burrow was still here. But the Texans still have to play the Colts at the end of the season, and that could be for the division title. If the Texans win the AFC South, then that means the Bengals would no longer be competing with them for a wild card spot, and instead it'd be, the Jaguars and the Colts, both of whom, again, the Bengals have a tiebreaker over and currently have the same record as. The other teams who are realistically competing for one of these 3 spots are the 9-5 Browns, the 8-6 Bills, the 7-7 Broncos, and the 7-7 Steelers. Throw in those other 8-6 teams in the AFC South that we just mentioned, and you kind of notice a pattern here. All of their fellow 8-6 teams, aside from the Texans, they currently own a head-to-head tiebreaker over, which is huge for the playoff race. Of course, they also have one more shot at the Steelers and Browns over the next few weeks, and the Broncos, well, all I can say is thanks, Lions. And that's what you get for cursing Joe Burrow, Brandon Perna. Alright, so all that out of the way, let's talk about some scenarios. According to the Upshot by New York Times, which is my absolute favorite playoff predictor website, by the way, hashtag not an ad, but please sponsor me, the Bengals currently have a 38% chance to make the playoffs. Now, personally, I don't totally agree with that, metric, because the Bengals currently control the number 6 seed in the AFC. If they win the rest of their games, which that might be where it's kind of coming into, it's virtually a guarantee that they make it. According to Upshot, there's less than a 1% chance for the Bengals to miss if they win out, but I personally couldn't find that scenario. I climbed every different thing that I could put together. I could not find a scenario where the Bengals finish 11-6 and don't make the playoffs. If you know what that is, please educate me in the comments, because as far as I can tell, the Bengals fully control their own destiny in the AFC playoffs. Hey guys, this is Kyle from the future, by the way. I just got home from work, and I'm editing the video, and I wanted to let you guys know that while I was at work, I did actually find that scenario where the Bengals miss the playoffs if they finish 11-6, thanks to Joe Goodberry. Turns out it's actually the Dolphins, of all teams, who might get in the Bengals' way if the Bengals win out. So if the Dolphins lose 2 of their 3 remaining games and then finish 11-6, and then the Bills win all of their remaining games, and then the Bills take the AFC East title, the Dolphins end up actually getting in the Bengals' way and edging them out due to a tiebreaker. And then obviously if, let's say the Browns and the Colts finish ahead of the Bengals as well, then the Bengals miss out on the playoffs despite finishing 11-6. And that would be really, really depressing. But hopefully that doesn't happen, so just win out and Go Dolphins, I guess. Kind of starts getting a little hairy if they lose any of their remaining games, though. I mean, they're not out of the water no matter what, for now. But if they lose any of their remaining games, you have to start getting into scenarios, right? Out of the three, though, the Steelers game this upcoming week is the most absolutely critical one. Win, and the Steelers fall to 7-8, so you're pretty much no longer competing with them for the AFC wildcard spot. You almost definitely don't have to worry about fending them off at that point. Lose, though, and you have zero, and I mean zero breathing room against the Chiefs and the Browns, and you gotta hope the Steelers lose at least one of their remaining games. You could say the same about the Browns game in Week 18, but right now it feels likely that the Browns are going to get the 5 seed anyway, so, I mean, if you're shooting for the 6 or 7 seed, then you could probably get away with losing that one. If you have to lose any of these games, though, losing to the Chiefs is probably the most tolerable, at least as far as the playoff race is considered. They're almost certainly going to win the AFC West at this point, so you're probably not going to be competing with them for a wild card spot at all, and you'll potentially have a chance to get revenge on them in the playoffs. But here's the thing, if the Bengals finish 10-7, you're really going to want the Texans to win the AFC South, because that means the Jaguars are probably finishing 10-7, and at that point, you can have the tiebreaker over them. And then on top of that, you'll need the Bills or Colts to lose one of their remaining games so that they finish with the same record as the Bengals, and then they can have that sweet, sweet tiebreaker advantage. I love winning by technicality. Now, if the Bengals lose 2 of their remaining games and finish 9-8, then you're really pushing it at that point. It's still possible for them to make the playoffs at 9-8, but you're going to need a lot of help at that point. I'm saying, like, the Steelers have to lose at least 2 of their remaining games. Well, both of their remaining games because they'd end up beating the Bengals. I'm talking the Colts and Jaguars have to lose all of their remaining games, right? So basically, if the Bengals lose to the Steelers this week and either the Jaguars or Colts win, then the Bengals are absolutely required to finish 10-7 to make the playoffs. Here is where it gets really wild, folks. Upshot says if the Bengals don't win another game this season, then they have no shot to make the playoffs. And I ran the scenarios, and that is technically not true. It's a bit of a trip, though, so you're going to have to stay with me. Okay, so if the Bengals lose out, they need the Steelers to win, actually, one more game, and then finish 9-8, so that the Steelers aren't competing with them for the number 7 seed because they'd have the tiebreaker over them. Then they need the Jaguars, Texans, and Bills to lose all of their remaining games as well. Oddly enough, they also need the Chiefs to win out, so, I mean, that's another thing that's going on here. Then the Colts would need to beat the Raiders in Week 17 because suddenly we're worried about the Raiders potentially overtaking the Bengals for the number 7 seed. Like the Raiders. This is what I'm saying. This is insane. It's also, though, to make sure that the Jaguars eliminate the Texans with the tiebreaker based on division tiebreakers. Because if all these teams finish at 8-9, then suddenly the Bengals would actually eliminate the Jaguars with a head-to-head victory because they already eliminated the Texans with whatever division. I didn't look that deep into it. Whatever division tiebreaker that they're having there. And then somehow, some way, as far as I can tell, and I could be wrong about this, correct me if I'm wrong, but somehow, some way, the Bengals would get the number 7 seed despite being 8-9 if all of this happens. We're getting into crazy territory, man, at this point. So to recap, if the Bengals lose out, they would need, in Week 16, for the Chargers to beat the Bills, the Browns to beat the Texans, the Buccaneers to beat the Jaguars, the Patriots to beat the Broncos, and then the Chiefs to beat the Raiders. In Week 17, they need the Patriots to beat the Bills. So we're going on like a big Patriots win streak here. That's part of the craziness of it. The Colts need to beat the Raiders. The Panthers need to beat the Jaguars. The Titans need to beat the Texans, even though they couldn't do it when C.J. Stroud was out. The Steelers need to beat the Seahawks, or they could beat the Ravens next week and then they don't need to beat the Seahawks. And then the Chargers need to beat the Broncos. And that's Week 17. In Week 18, they need the Steelers to beat the Ravens, unless they had already beaten the Seahawks, in which case they don't need to beat the Ravens. The Colts need to beat the Texans. The Chiefs need to beat the Chargers. The Raiders need to beat the Broncos. The Dolphins need to beat the Bills. And then finally, the Titans need to beat the Jaguars. Alright, okay. Are you still with me? Are you still with me? Okay, like this is a lot. Let's not do this. This is too much, okay? Let's not rely on this. If literally any of these games don't go the way that, they absolutely have to, then we're screwed. So there you go. There's pretty much every scenario for the Bengals to make the playoffs. The secret is winning, believe it or not. Win, and you don't have to worry about any of this crap, man. Lose, and then we got to start playing hopscotch with the whiteboard again. And nobody wants this. But if you want it, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what your team is looking like for the playoff race. And do you want me to do a breakdown? Hopefully it's not going to look like this, right? But do you want me to do a breakdown of your team's playoff scenarios? Let me know in the comments, and I'll put the best ones in my next video, like this one from Jim7134, who said on my Vikings-Bengals live stream, "Congrats on the Bengals win. Whatever hope I had for the Vikings is gone until week 1 next year." And I gotta say, Jim, that was a hell of a game, buddy. Y'all honestly, should have had us, and I'm still shocked that we won that game. In fact, all of you guys who are watching should go watch my reaction video for that game, which I'll link at the end of this video. I definitely went through every single range of emotions in this one, man. As far as the Vikings go, though, Jim, they're not totally dead in the water yet. I know it sucks after losing a game like that. But I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, to see an 8-9 team get a wild card berth in the NFC right now, just because of the way the NFC is. But like I said, if you want that playoff scenario video, let me know. But until then, guys, don't forget to check out the other videos on my channel. A playlist that I think you're going to like is going to be coming up here in a bit. And I'd really, really appreciate it if you'd like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Let's see if I can hit my end of season goal of 500 subscribers. And if we do, I promise there's going to be a lot more cool stuff coming from this channel. I'm going to be putting cool stuff out anyway, but a lot more of it. Until then, I'll leave y'all, as always, with a hootie!